KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your beer.
Keep following the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent. I'm in touch until you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, and there I am, fresh for you to follow. Have you downloaded the KBLA Talk 1580 app? Have you done it? If not, no time like the present. Also subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA Talk 1580 for added measure. Now, you all might have missed this, but because I love you so much, I'm going to continue to remind you that for folks who are looking to upskill, folks who are looking to perhaps go back to school, go to graduate school, get that graduate degree, I want to help you out a little bit. I teach at Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education and Psychology, and I want to make you an offer that maybe you can't refuse. Your fee waivers for your application will be covered by using the code PATH to Purpose, PATH, the number 2, the word purpose, PURPOSE. If you use PATH to Purpose, we will waive your application fee of $55. In addition, you will be entered into the highest level of consideration for a $10,000 scholarship to attend Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education and Psychology. On the psychology side of the house, we have programs like our marriage and family therapy program, our counseling program. And then on the education side of the house, where I'm at, we have our social entrepreneurship and change program. Very, very cutting edge, very innovative. In addition, we have our organizational leadership doctoral program and our global leadership and change program. And so if you are looking to go back into higher education, to pursue higher education, I hope you will consider the Pepperdine University Graduate School of Education and Psychology. Now, it's time for your National News Roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, officials, more than a dozen U.S. officials, did you know this? They sold stocks before Trump's tariffs sent the market plunging. ProPublica is reporting that the week before President Trump unveiled bruising new tariffs that sent the stock market plummeting. A key official in the agency that shapes his administration's trade policy sold off as much as $30,000 of stocks. And then 2 days later, before the so-called Liberation Day, before that announcement on April 2nd, State Department officials sold as much as $50,000 in stocks, then bought a similar investment as prices fell. And just before Trump made another significant tariff announcement, a White House lawyer sold shares in 9 companies. That's according to records, again, that were reviewed by the folks over at ProPublica. You see, more than a dozen high-ranking executive branch officials and congressional aides have made well-timed trades since Trump took office in January, most of them selling stocks before the market plunged amid fears that Trump's tariffs would set off a global trade war. And all of the trades, they came shortly before a significant government announcement or development that could influence stock prices. So some who sold individual stocks or broader market funds, they use their earnings to buy investments that are generally less risky, such as bonds and treasuries. Others appear to have kept their money in cash. In one case, unrelated to tariffs, records show that a congressional aide bought stocks in 2 mining companies before a key committee approved a bill written by his boss that would help the firms. What am I saying in shorthand? Well, based on what ProPublica has reported, there is evidence that there are folks in the administration, there are folks on Capitol Hill that may be enriching themselves. They're taking this information that's not yet public, and they're making financial decisions, they're making financial trades to enrich themselves. Again, what does it have to do with making your life better? They're working off of information that you and me don't have. And they're making a lot of money off of it. I thought you'd want to know that. You know what else you might want to know? The LA Times is reporting that the former LA deputy mayor who reported a fake anti-Israel bomb threat strikes a plea deal. Former senior member of LA Mayor Karen Bass's staff has struck a plea deal with federal prosecutors admitting that he called in a fake bomb threat to City Hall late last year that was blamed on anti-Israel sentiment. That's what federal prosecutors announced just earlier today. The LA Times reporting that under the terms of the plea agreement, Brian Williams, a longtime law enforcement oversight official who served as Bass's deputy mayor of public safety, agreed to plead guilty to a single count of threats regarding fire and explosives, which carries a maximum prison sentence of 10 years. He's expected to make his initial court appearance in the next few weeks. And a statement to the Times, Williams' lawyer, Dimitri Gorin, said that his client, quotes, has demonstrated his unreserved and full acceptance of responsibility for his actions. The apparitional incident was the product of personal issues, which Mr. Williams is addressing appropriately and is not representative of his character or dedication to the city of Los Angeles. Williams was participating in a virtual meeting at City Hall on October 3rd, 2024, when he used the Google Voice application on his personal phone to place a call to the city-issued cell phone, according to the plea agreement. Williams admitted that he left the meeting and called Scott Harrelson, a top aide to the LAPD chief. According to the plea, Williams falsely stated that he had just received a call on his city-issued cell phone from an unknown male caller who made a bomb threat against City Hall. At no time did Williams intend to carry out the threat, according to the plea deal. This comes as a enormous surprise. A lot of folks, myself included, know Brian Williams. Brian Williams is no stranger to the community. He has been out and about and doing great work for a long time. And so, this story really strikes me as being quite bizarre. I'm sure there are a lot of folks who've known Brian for a long time that may feel the same way. But that is the latest related to that story. We'll continue to keep you posted as it develops. When we come forward, we're switching gears, giving you an update on week 2 with the Diddy trial. Ashley Banfield, host of Banfield on News Nation, will join us to give her hot take on some of the most noteworthy developments during the Diddy trial this week. And then a little bit later, we'll hear from Justin Knighton, a former FEMA assistant administrator. He published an op-ed in the Chicago Tribune recently that is calling attention to some of the challenges that we might expect if FEMA does not get the support that it needs to be able to support the American people in times of emergency. We'll talk to Justin about that a little bit later. But when we come forward, we're going to be talking to Ashley Banfield about the Diddy trial. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint. KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say. Let's do this.
Let's get it on! On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There'll be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is Resilience in the Face of Chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next. Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
We love you.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code PUSH to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code PUSH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PUSH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests. As we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really honored to welcome my next guest. You all might recognize her from her work at News Nation, but she has been in the game for quite a bit. I'm talking about Ashley Banfield of the hit show Banfield on News Nation, which airs weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. You might also enjoy her podcast, Drop Dead Serious, which is available everywhere. Welcome to the show, Ashley. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Well, great to have you here. First things first, I know you've been following the Diddy trial very, very, very closely. Get us up to date, up to speed. What have been some of the biggest revelations you've observed so far this week?
Wow. We would need about 3 hours just for the summary. But I think, Doc, that the biggest revelation has been what Cassie described, and that's his girlfriend of 10 years, as forced sex that she at times was a willing participant in, but at other times was definitely not. She laid out a pattern of these freak-offs, showing that she didn't really have a choice in this, that she feared Diddy's wrath unless she did everything he asked, not just the sex, but also how she looked, how she dressed, how she talked, how her career was going to go. And the forced aspect of it was really backed up, it seems, by the release of that video in the hotel hallway that shows Diddy beating the living daylights out of her and dragging her by the hair, back to the hotel room, where we learned that there was a male prostitute who had been involved in a freak-off, who said that Diddy was very violent with her during that freak-off and said, let's finish strong. What he said sounded like a beating in the other room. So that was very, very powerful in terms of laying out what the prosecutors say is proof of forced sex and kidnapping and beating and assault. And those are all predicate acts to prove RICO, racketeering, which is a head of an enterprise uses his staff to carry out his illegal activities. We heard lots of evidence that show Diddy used his staff to set up these freak-offs, buy the tickets, fly the prostitutes, ply the hotel rooms with the oil and the lube and the drugs, etc. So pretty strong case, if you ask me. That's just one of the elements that I think is strong.
I mean, I really wonder if that's really sticking. I've been following not just the case, but following sort of the social media response to daily revelations in the case. And one of the consistent things that I'm seeing is that a lot of folks are scratching their head and they're saying, okay, yeah, it's clear that Diddy was an abuser, that there were incidents of domestic violence. That seems pretty clear to a lot of everyday people, but the connection to the RICO charges, it still feels a little bit fuzzy. And a lot of folks, at least in the world of the internet, haven't yet seen that smoking gun that ties together the RICO charges. Is this a concern that the prosecution has? Is this an upper hand that the defense has in this case?
No, I'm not concerned. I cover trials for a living, and I'll tell you what, unless you follow like a jury follows, which is every single thing that happens in that room all day long, every day, the entire trial, you don't see the things that the jury sees. You don't see the patterns. You don't see, every box being and loops being closed. And I can say that in the Casey Anthony case. I can say that in a lot of cases that people have scratched their heads over. This is not a head scratcher for me at all. I think this prosecutor has laid out, and again, for racketeering and sex trafficking, what you got to prove for racketeering is that you got the enterprise. That would be Diddy and Bad Boy Records. Using his staff, that would be all the people you're hearing testify, his assistant, Cassie who worked for him, driver who worked for him, others who worked for him, security, etc. Using his to carry out his illegal activities in that hotel room and elsewhere, carrying guns to go after Suge Knight, forcing the driver to drive, assistant to drive with guns, sex abuse and coerced sex, which Cassie says happened in those freak-offs, her running for her life but being beaten and brought back to that hotel room. Kidnapping, that's the definition of kidnapping. Ask OJ what he served 9 years for. Forced labor, some of these people are saying we didn't want to do this, but we were scared. How about bribery and extortion? He allegedly bribed that security guy at the Intercontinental Hotel to keep that video quiet. Here's $100,000. Don't let anybody see it. It's also what you might call obstruction of justice. And then how about the extortion? Cassie's mom is told by Diddy in an email that's copied to his staff, pay me $20,000 because your daughter's seeing someone else now, and I want my money back from what I've given to her. All of that following a terrifying email from Cassie saying, Diddy says he's going to release a sex tape of me, Mom. And Cassie's poor mom has to take out a $20,000 home equity loan and wire to Diddy. And the wire instructions came from who? His bookkeeper. So I am seeing RICO every which way but Sunday.
Well, thank you for clarifying that and helping us to see some of the nuance and also schooling us on how juries interpret this information, this level of detail. You mentioned O.J. Simpson, and for folks who may be a little less familiar, I remember when you were covering the O.J. Simpson trial, and I'm curious as to what comparisons, if any, you would draw between this trial and the O.J. trial. O.J. also sort of, a cultural icon, a super celebrity, if you will. O.J. Simpson also accused of domestic violence. There was a release of photographs of what looked like a battered Nicole Brown Simpson compared to the release of this Cassie tape where she was clearly being abused at a hotel. What sort of comparisons can we fairly draw between the O.J. Simpson case and this Diddy case?
Yeah, and by the way, by saying that you remember the coverage, you and me old.
A little salt and pepper never hurt nobody, Ashley.
So that said, the similarities are super famous defense, beloved with a huge following, right? And really, really expensive Cadillac defense team. They both have that. Female abused and pictures being shown and very uncomfortable testimony about that. And then that's where it ends. Because in Diddy's case, unlike in O.J.'s case, O.J. had a Rodney King preface. And jurors in O.J.'s case even articulated as much, that this was payback for King. So they weren't so much interested in the evidence that was shoved down their throats for 9 months under sequestration. Excuse me? How to make a jury mad. Stick him in a hotel for 9 months. They said it was payback for Rodney King. And so Diddy doesn't have that. Diddy doesn't have a Rodney King. Diddy doesn't have a payback. Diddy doesn't have anything that will endear jurors to him or want them to do him a favor. Diddy just has a parade of horribles in the evidence that the prosecutors have laid out. And let me tell you, in order to prove RICO, you only need 2 predicate acts proven over 10 years. And just in the first, I think, day or two, I heard about 10 different predicate acts, illegal acts that the prosecutors showed evidence for and gave testimony against that showed he conducted these illegal acts as the head of an enterprise, using his staff to do so. So the sex trafficking throws a lot of people off, by the way. Most people are saying, oh, sex trafficking, that's throwing a lot of poor, afraid young women into a bus or a plane and spiriting them off to some locked up, terrible place and forcing them to perform sex. Not necessarily. Sex trafficking is also paying an airline ticket for a prostitute and flying that prostitute across state lines or international lines for the purpose of illegal sex. And I think the prosecutors have brought the receipts on that.
In our remaining minutes, Ashley, we know that Diddy is facing life in prison, but a lot of people may not know he could lose the assets that he's built up while becoming a music mogul, including his mansions, his cars, private jet, and even the Bad Boy Records label. Any clues you can offer in terms of how Team Diddy is trying to fortify his empire so that, if he were to lose his case, that his legacy could continue in some way, shape, or form?
Nii-Quartelai, I don't think he's got a legacy after this. If he is able to beat this rap, that's the only winning that this guy's going to be able to do, because he is now going to suffer the same legacy as Epstein and Cosby and Weinstein. I mean, the evidence that's come out so far, that's irrefutable. The beatings that Cosby withstood on video, right? Then the mother having to take out a home equity loan to pay Diddy, a billionaire, $20,000 because she feared for her daughter's safety, and she feared that Diddy was going to release a sex tape. These are things that nobody will forget. And so Diddy is done in terms of that empire of his. I don't think there's a whole lot of coming back from that. I think Diddy will be lucky if he can spend huge treasure from that empire to pay these defense lawyers just to keep him out of prison. And I'm going to go on the record. I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
You're not going to be able to do it. That's what Ashley Banfield is saying. Ashley, the streets are saying, though, that perhaps Diddy's ACE card, his get-out-of-jail-free card, perhaps, could be a pardon from Donald Trump on these federal charges. Is that really a wild card? I mean, is that sort of the reset button in some way, shape, or form for Diddy if that were to happen?
Hey, a pardon is a magic wand, and you can pardon anybody. However, you got to think, what's in it for Donald Trump? Donald Trump doesn't do things unless there's a benefit to him. What's in it for Donald Trump? Diddy can't just pay Donald Trump money because Donald Trump's got plenty of that right now. He's got crypto that's paying him billions. I don't see where he's got an alliance with Donald Trump, a friendship with Donald Trump, a benefit to Donald Trump, where Donald would put his legacy on the line. Because, again, this is a guy who's just abusing the hell out of a woman and possibly multiple other women and staff, and using drugs and allegedly trafficking in drugs and, behaving in the manner of racketeering. So I don't see that happening. Then again, I've been surprised by Donald Trump before.
Our thanks to Ashley Banfield, the host of Banfield on News Nation. Again, her show airs weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on News Nation. Also, check out her podcast. It's pretty good. It's called Drop Dead Serious, and it's available everywhere. Thank you, Ashley Banfield.
It's really great to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Likewise, you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A $20,000 reward is being offered for tips leading to the arrest of New Orleans jail escapees. 10 black inmates broke out Friday and 5 are still at large. One jail worker was arrested for helping them, although his lawyer says he was threatened. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is calling for an end to anti-Semitic protests after 2 Israeli embassy staffers were killed in D.C. Standing with faith leaders, Adams condemned the attack and ordered increased NYPD security, including heavy weapons teams at Jewish sites. And Yale is awarding honorary degrees to 5 black trailblazers at its 324th commencement, including Debbie Allen, Skip Gates Jr., and jazz musician Ronald Carter. Allen danced back to her seat after accepting hers. The university has awarded honorary degrees since 1702. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Here's another example of how international basketball has caught up to the NBA. When Oklahoma City star Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was voted league MVP Wednesday, it was the 7th straight year the MVP award has gone to an international player. Gilgeous-Alexander was born in Toronto and grew up in the Canadian city. In the previous 6 years, Denver center Nikola Jokic of Slovenia has been MVP 3 times. Milwaukee center Giannis Antetokounmpo of Greece has won it twice. Philadelphia center Joel Embiid, a native of Cameroon, was MVP in 2023. Clippers guard James Harden was the last American-born player to be voted MVP. Harden won the award in 2018. need. During the Angels' 6-game winning streak, they moved out of last place in the American League West Division. The Angels are 4th in the division, only 5 games behind division leader Seattle. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit casmpvolunteer.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
Hit me! National News The Consequence. Informed opinion.
An analysis beyond the headlines.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and delighted to welcome back to the show Mayor Steve Benjamin, the former mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. He also serves as a special assistant to the president and White House Director of Public Engagement. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Doc, thank you for having me, man.
Well, this has been a really challenging several days following Hurricane Helene making landfall, really devastating the South. Just yesterday, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas in the White House briefing room really helped us to understand the scale of the response. Over 4,500 federal personnel, including 1,200 urban search and rescue personnel, are involved. The administration also busy addressing the dock workers strike, among so many other challenges, both foreign and domestic. Let's talk about the response to Hurricane Helene. We know President Biden is headed to North Carolina right now as we speak. Please share with us an update and any announcements, preview any announcements that the president might be making this afternoon.
No, I thought Secretary Mayorkas's statements were particularly resonant. Obviously, you know, prior to joining the administration, I served 12 years as mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. And in 2015, we had our 1,000-year event, Tropical Storm Joaquin, hammered both the Carolinas. And you think about over the course of several weeks, 11 trillion gallons of water, and the damage they can do cost us 19 precious lives, billions of dollars of damage, and a lot of lives changed forever. It was an amazing experience that allows us to really take a thoughtful look into what people are dealing with in both North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida right now. The president is on his way to South Carolina, landing at Greenville-Spartanburg Airport. He's going to do an aerial tour of the damage in Western North Carolina with the mayor of Asheville and others to not be on the ground and have to divert resources from the very important work that's happening on the ground there. And then he's heading over to Raleigh with Governor Cooper and others to, after obviously surveying the damage and receiving briefings, he's going to meet with first responders, officials, and also some of the families displaced from Western North Carolina who are now in Raleigh. He's also announced that he's heading to Florida and Georgia tomorrow to also meet with affected communities there on the ground, spending time, again, getting firsthand accounts from people there doing the work there. The vice president is heading to Georgia today. She's heading to Valdosta. She's also going to receive operational briefings, meet residents impacted by the storm, and also provide updates to local officials on actions that are being taken to support the emergency response in Georgia. And she's also going to be in North Carolina in the coming days. They're both very much hands-on, work throughout the weekend, as you mentioned, as we deal with issues abroad in the Middle East, certainly economic issues. The president's also hands-on with the dock worker strike here on the East Coast, but he's forehead deep today as part of the administration's intensive response. The president's also announcing that he's deploying 1,000 active duty soldiers from Fort Liberty from the Department of Defense to also help with delivery of food, water, and other critical commodities to communities affected by Hurricane Helene, predominantly in North Carolina as well. This announcement is effective immediately, and these forces are going to be deployed starting today. Just making sure we're doing everything we can from a federal whole of government approach to meet the needs of people on the ground who need help right now. These additional 1,000 individuals, 2,000 hands are going to help provide additional manpower and logistics capabilities, enabling FEMA and other interagency partners to reach the hardest hit areas as quickly as possible. Already had 1,200 personnel on the ground in North Carolina alone, with more resources arriving daily, working very closely with the private sector on the restoration of power. We've already seen over 65% of folks reconnected to their primary sources of energy, which we know is critical for families every single day. These are difficult times. The president realized that very early on and approved major disaster declarations for Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia, almost instantaneously, once requested by the governors as was required, and making sure that FEMA is available to help with some of the basic things that people need, baby formula, food, water, and other emergency supplies. We've also had about $10 million in disaster assistance go to families right now. So we're all in. He's on the ground today meeting with citizens, local leaders, and as well as statewide leaders, just making sure that we're communicating very carefully to people that the federal government's actively involved. The president, vice president, have their fingers on the pulse of what people need right now.
You mentioned earlier, as did I, that you formerly served as the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. You also used to head up the U.S. Conference of Mayors. A lot of people respect you as sort of a mayor's mayor. Talk us through, on the local level, what we might expect in the coming days and weeks when it comes to recovering from this. This is not going to be easy. And just the scale of the response signals, just how serious the devastation is and how widespread it is. And so talk to us about what we can expect, because we know that there are already folks that are trying to politicize this, going out of their way to politicize this, and to poke at the response, which has been comprehensive. And that's not just me saying it. We've talked to folks on the ground in places like South Carolina who have said that the response from the Biden-Harris administration has been solid. We've heard that from even Republican governors as well. And so talk to us about what we can expect in the days and weeks ahead.
In these times in which we live, it seems like people in the oil interest want to politicize everything. I would direct people to the Republican governor of South Carolina, hard conservative, who's praised the president's response and the way in which FEMA and Deanne Criswell and others have been on the ground engaged. As I was preparing to talk to you, I actually went back to my notes, and you asked about my experiences as mayor. I remember speaking to a youth group recently. I had to go back and sit down and go through my old notes. When an unprecedented natural disaster hits your community, it's something that you can only pray that you're prepared for. I remember in our city, 45 dams failed across our city here. Residents tell us about hearing that popping sound and realizing it's the dam that was up the street from their home. 541 roads damaged and closed. And the first day alone, we had 6,415 911 calls and almost 3,000 agency dispatches. We lost 19 precious lives, and across the state, $12 billion in damage from tropical storm Joaquin. Helene is doing even more damage. But this is a very human component that doesn't know red or blue or a Democrat or Republican. These are human beings. I remember sitting on the front lawn of one of my constituents, and it was the age of my father, and watching him weep as he had his photo albums. Nowadays we don't even download our photos from our phones anymore. He had his photo album spread across his front lawn, trying to do his very best just to have these photo albums dry out so he could preserve these memories of his children and his parents. It's this is a human response that requires us to think about each other in ways that tap into our very deepest sources of good. So we want to encourage people. This is going to require a governmental response. It's going to require our churches to step up, our nonprofits that are built for this to step up, and it's each and every one of us tapping into our better angels and being good neighbors, our brothers and sisters keeper. We can do this, but it's going to require everyone working together, our president and vice president leading from the front, but it's going to require each and every one of us to do our part as well.
Mayor Benjamin, in our remaining minute with you, what can our fellow Americans do? We see the whole of government response to the devastation of Hurricane Helene. We are a generous people, we Americans. What can we do to support our fellow Americans in harm's way?
Well, we all know the trusted sources in our own communities. So if you know that nonprofit or the church or others doing good work, support them. If you can support them financially, if you're within the sound of my voice and not in one of the unaffected areas, make sure they have the resources to do what they do. But even more importantly, if you need help, we want people to know to go to disasterassistance.gov, call 1-800-621-3362, or download the FEMA app and make sure that if you need help, you're asking for help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of reality. We all need help at different points in our lives. And when we deal with this unprecedented disaster, we have to step up to help each other. So again, disasterassistance.gov, and that phone number is 800-621-3362. But thank you so much. All right, appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Our thanks to Steve Benjamin, Special Assistant to the President, White House Director of Public Engagement. They are on the case, trying to help so many of our fellow Americans beginning to recover from Hurricane Helene. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in focus and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. If you're a guy facing divorce, remember, Cordell & Cordell, a partner you can count on.
1455 Frazee, San Diego. CordellCordell.com.
Trust & Will knows that we'll all eventually need a will. How about right now? Trust & Will makes creating your will easy, like while you're lounging on the couch easy. Trust & Will is designed by attorneys but customized by you, and all documents are state-specific and secure. Find your plan at trustandwill.com and use offer code RADIO now for 20% off. That's trustandwill.com, offer code RADIO. Trust & Will is an online estate planning service. Visit trustandwill.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you, working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really delighted to welcome my next guest, Justin Angel Knighton, to the show. Justin has served our country honorably in the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Just this week in the Chicago Tribune, Justin published an op-ed that's getting some attention. It's raising some eyebrows, but a lot of headlines in the news related to the mass firings of folks in critical positions at the Federal Emergency Management Agency. This is an issue that's important to all Americans, particularly folks near our home station in Los Angeles that are just in the early stages of recovering from a historic wildfire. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me and caring about all things preparedness and all things keeping people safe during catastrophic events. Great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And again, thank you for your service. And so for our leaders, learners, and listeners that are a little less familiar, very high level, talk to us about your op-ed published in the Chicago Tribune and why you decided to speak about this now.
Yeah, so those of us in emergency management always say that if you have lived through a disaster, you are more likely to get prepared for one in the future. And the reality is we've all lived, those of us who have been lucky enough to survive the COVID-19 pandemic of 5 years ago. So we're all disaster survivors. We all understand what it was like to live through that global pandemic. And if you look across the country, you can see bird flu going through cattle, which is a historic first. You can see measles outbreaks happening in different states, jumping from one city to the next. And, you know, those of us who are in the crisis management, public health, risk communication space can't help but look at these headlines and be fearful of what this could mean for our communities moving forward. I'm also a huge fan of all things zombies and the current show on HBO Max, Last of Us. And I can't watch that show, and I don't think anyone can watch that show and realize that the focus on zombies is actually very little. Like when you watch that show, the screen time that zombies have, which is kind of rare in the zombie genre, it isn't frequent, but everything else is, right? The breakdown of society, the breakdown of safety, the breakdown of infrastructure, and as I argue in my op-ed, the breakdown of communications, right? The lack of communications, the lack of trust, the lack of fact creates a situation in which we are going from the controlled safety infrastructure that we need to have in response to these public health emergencies into straight chaos. And so the op-ed I wrote was really to take a moment to reflect on a cultural show that so many of us are watching and reflect on what I think the impacts are, what I think the investment of a communication civic infrastructure needs to look like right now before these public health issues begin to spread even further.
A few weeks ago, Justin, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but KBLA Talk 1580, we hosted a town hall in Altadena where hundreds of community members came together as we marked 100 days after that horrific wildfire that folks are still reeling from. One of the things that you wrote about in your op-ed that's published in the Chicago Tribune the headline reading, let's learn from The Last of Us. We're not ready for the next outbreak. One of the things that you talk about is strategic listening. And, you write, make listening a strategic function, not an afterthought. Crisis leaders must institutionalize community listening to adapt messaging in the moment. Real communications begins by understanding and addressing fears and needs, not assumptions. There are a number of folks that noticed that when the current president came to LA, he didn't come to Altadena. Now, I think the EPA secretary has made a visit, but folks in Altadena, they're not really feeling heard or all that supported by a number of electeds. Is that the same way that you see it?
Listen, I judge leadership, whether it's in crisis or not, by action, intention, and by listening, right? Mm-hmm. I actually count talking and speaking as the last of the list of what is actually said, last of the list, because talking is easy, right? Talking is cheap, and it's a lot harder to check yourself, check your assumptions, check what you know and what you think could be the right way to go, and take the action of putting yourself in the middle of a community that you are not familiar with, that you don't understand, to listen, to not comment, and to just take a moment to reflect and understand and learn, as you say, the listeners, learners, and leaders that are on this program, and to do that in communities especially when lives are on the line, especially when recovery is on the line. This is true, and this is the bread and butter foundation of emergency management and those that work in crisis situations, whether it's in public health or in wildfire, is to listen. What is happening in the community? What are people experiencing? I loved the town hall that you hosted. Thank you for doing it and capturing the voices and the truth that can be reflected upon and that we can learn from moving forward as we continue to focus on this recovery in LA. I was on the ground in Los Angeles before I left my job as a FEMA associate administrator to be on the ground during the active fire, to go to Altadena and listen and learn myself about what the situation was, because I knew that I had a short window before I had to give up my position to be able to help encourage my team to lean forward in the right ways and to continue to listen. And so I'm hopeful that work will continue, and it already is in many ways. Where it's coming from might prioritize with the state of California and the leaders in California that care a lot and will continue to care a lot, from the state all the way to the mayor's office. And from there, we'll have to wait and see what happens next.
Justin, one of the things you also mentioned in your op-ed is operationalize cultural competence at scale. Don't just translate messages, but instead co-create them with communities. I take your point, but it also seems at odds with the reversals in commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion that we're seeing, certainly within the federal government, certainly making its way in the private sector, certainly finding its way in higher education. Is there an example that comes to mind when you were back at FEMA where cultural competence actually saved lives? A lot of people think about it as this warm and fuzzy sort of, Care Bear thing to do, but talk to us about an example that comes to mind in about a minute or so that actually saved lives.
Absolutely. Soy Latino, and my family are immigrants from Mexico. And what is true for anyone who speaks Spanish as a native speaker, Spanish is not Spanish is not Spanish. Depending on which country you originate from and where you've learned Spanish, the Spanish is very different. Quite literally, we know lives have been saved or that challenges have come up because information was translated into Spanish for different communities, not realizing the audience is from a community that doesn't speak the Spanish that you're translated, whether that's from Puerto Rico, whether that's from Mexico, whether that's from Peru. We need to understand the actual communities that we're working with to make sure that they're getting the information. I've seen it with language, but it's also true from, are you developing messaging and information to save lives for an urban audience? that is meant for actually saving lives in a rural. Those two things don't mix either. We actually need to understand where people are coming from, where they are, and what they know if we're going to make information available to them that will save their life. Translating words on a one-size-fits-all message never saves lives.
In our remaining minutes, Justin, I've got to ask you, we've seen so many mass firings across federal agencies, including FEMA. What are you hearing from some of your former colleagues in terms of the risk that is being presented to our fellow Americans that are in, parts of the country where wildfires are common, parts of the country where hurricanes, they're in a hurricane path, parts of the country where tornadoes happen at a moment's notice? How, not just how scared, but how prepared should our fellow Americans be for a disaster, in which case the federal government does not do what it has done in years past?
Listen, the FEMA workforce are some of the most dedicated, committed people, not only in government, but on the earth, in our country. These are people who run into crisis. These are people who leave their own homes for weeks and months at a time to go be face-to-face with disaster survivors to help them on their worst day and get them onto their journey to recovery. The fact that we've lost anyone at the FEMA level is a travesty. And the reality is that that is not good for catastrophic events that could happen this year, right? All disasters start and end at the local level. When a disaster hits, a flood, an earthquake, hurricane season, we're only days away from the kickoff of hurricane season. We know that the local officials on the ground will handle that response and that recovery. It takes up to the state level when the locals are at capacity. And when the state is overwhelmed, because it's that big of an event, it goes up to FEMA. A report was released today that says that FEMA may not be ready for hurricane season this year. And so my message to everyone is, and this would be regardless of what was happening at the federal level, this is just a day-to-day message. You have to take the steps to set the intention of getting prepared, understanding your risk, and start taking those incremental steps to make you and your loved ones a little bit more safe before something happens.
Our thanks to Justin Angel Knighton, a former crisis manager in California, a Federal Emergency Management Agency Associate Administrator. He is currently an Institute of Politics Pritzker Fellow at the University of Chicago, and we look forward to having you back again as the news cycle presents those opportunities. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And we'll have to end it here. Our thanks to the entire village helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer Andy, our show producers Faraji and Art, and each and every one of you. Remember, don't panic, organize, do what you can from where you are with what you have, but by all means do something. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Orleans Parish DA Jason Williams, who is black, is launching his own probe into last week's jailbreak involving 10 black men, criticizing the sheriff's office for not processing the crime scene.
And so there are a number of breakdowns that occurred, and any family member who is scared or frustrated